Thank you for joining us on this edition of Platform. Today we have a special guest. He is a servant in the Lord's vineyard, one of God's generals, I will say. And we'll be sharing experiences about his life, what he's doing, and what he plans to do in future. My name is Yakubu Chadi. Sir, we normally ask our guests to introduce themselves. Can you tell our viewer who you are?
Thank you. My name is Reverend Dr. Obed Dashan, MNI. I am the Vice President of the Church of Christ in Nations, Cochin. Outgoing now. Sunday I will be a former Vice President. I am married to Fena Dashan. We have 5 children, and we live here in Jos. We live in Bukuru, but work here in Jos.
So when were you born, and where were you born? How was your early childhood?
I was born in Kawel. Kawel is in Mushere Chiefdom in Bokos local government in 1956. It's a guess because no specific date was recorded. It was like the one that I used from what my uncle gave me is 1956. So I've been using that since primary school time.
So, how was growing up like?
We grew up on the farm. When we were young, we went to the farm. We went to look after the sheep and the goats, which I am going back to doing after I retire. So I grew up on the farm, basically. Rural life, village life. We just roam about, and we had the neighbors. Everybody knew everybody, and we were just happy until I went to primary school and secondary school.
In the same community, or you went elsewhere?
I went to classes 1 to 4 in the LEA Mushere. Then I went to class 5 in 3 different schools: Bokos, Butura, and Mangu.
Why so?
There were transfers. My uncle transferred, so I...
Oh, you didn't stay with your parents?
I stayed with my uncle in Bokos. After the first 4 years, I was with my parents. But after that, I stayed with my uncle, my paternal uncle. And so we moved.
What was he doing?
He worked with the government. He was a government worker, so I was with him.
So if they transfer him, you moved with him?
Yes, so I went with him, wherever he was. So then from there, from primary school in Mangu, I went to Gindri Boys Secondary School and finished Boys Secondary School and worked in Boys Secondary School for 2 years, and then I went off to TCN in Bukuru. TCN in Bukuru for 4 years. After that, I went down to teach at the Pastors College, Kabwir then. And after that, we went to do a little bit more studies, and we came back. And we taught in Gindri Theological Seminary now for 16 years with my wife.
What are the memorable things you would remember in primary school and secondary school? And what was were those things that, yes, at times people have aspirations and ambitions. This is who I want to be. But here you are, a soldier, a general in the Lord's vineyard. Was that what you set out to achieve from the beginning?
No. In primary school, I was just interested in reading books. Any book that I saw, I would read, including, in fact, I had to steal the Bible to read, because I wanted to read anything I found. And I didn't even understand the word "thou shalt not steal" in the book, but I was interested in reading the Bible as well as the book. But so primary school, it was just competition. I just wanted to achieve. I didn't know. I didn't have a particular direction. I didn't have a particular guide as to what I wanted to do. But I just didn't want anybody to beat me. I had one girl that was so bright in Mangu. Hulda Fang Chi was one of those girls that very brilliant. With another classmate of mine, Danny. This guy is from, I think, Ogbomoso. Very brilliant people. So I didn't want them to beat me. So I had to work hard to make sure that we were at least going together. And I didn't want to. So for me, it was just the
healthy competition.
Yes, we were happy to read and happy to see getting A's or 90s or 100% in all the courses was my goal. I wasn't particularly, but when I went to secondary school, I wanted to read geography at the higher level. Later on, my focus was I wanted to become a professor of town planning, at least to read to a level where I could lecture in the university. But in Form 4-5, I had a call to pastoral ministry. And that kind of changed the course of my life. But I became a Christian in Gindri, actually. I wasn't a Christian in primary school.
Are you from a Christian background?
No.
Okay. So how did your parents receive?
My father wasn't bothered. He was traditional religion. So he wasn't bothered that I was a Christian. But at first he was a little bit apprehensive because he wanted me to take over from him. And he had actually taught me the basics of traditional religion. But when I became a Christian, I just threw everything away and stayed with my new faith. And so I didn't want to go back to the old religion.
Did it cause any problem in the family?
No. In the community, people, some are Christian, some are traditional religion, so it wasn't a big deal. Some families would, but our family, I was not particularly attacked or abused or anything. And of course, the Christianity changed me so much that I was very nice to my dad too. So he didn't see a reason why he should quarrel with me.
So what work did you do in Gindri after you finished secondary school? You said you briefly
I was working as a cashier in boys' school. That was the year that the schools were decentralized. So they were looking for a cashier. And I came to collect my WAEC. And Mr. Daulung, then the principal, said they were looking for me. They didn't know where I was. They wanted somebody honest that could come and take care of their cash, be a cashier. So he asked if I wanted to come. I was already working with the judiciary because when I finished boys' school, I was interviewed and the judiciary posted me to Langtang. So
jobs were waiting for people then.
Yes. Okay. So I resigned from Gindri, went down and gave it to them and came back to Gindri because I wanted to stay in Gindri even when I finished secondary school.
What was the attraction?
Gindri kind of molded me spiritually. Gindri gave me a sense of direction, gave me sense of community, sense of being accepted, and being. I kind of felt being a real human being in terms of my faith, my relationship with people. So when I finished boys' school, I was getting out of the gate, and I turned around and I looked at Gindri and I said, God, how can I get back to Gindri? Wow. Not knowing that I was going to come back anyway. So, but it came so quickly. So I like Gindri because it was there I came to know the Lord. And during the Holy Spirit in 1972, we were in Form 1 then. And again, now reading the Bible afresh with an eye of a new Christian was the one that gave me the zest to go back to primary school and apologize for stealing the Bible that I had stolen before.
Did you return it?
Someone had already stolen it from me too, so I went back to tell the headmaster I was going to work to make money to pay back.
You eventually paid?
No, I didn't pay. He told me not to worry, that since I had come back to say sorry, they also have forgiven me, so I didn't pay.
All right.
Yeah, but I acknowledge it to them.
That's quite interesting.
Yeah.
I was going through your resume, your very rich resume. It's educating, training yourself within the Christian faith, mostly abroad. And one thing that attracted my attention is that in your daily life, there's a budget for death. People want to live long. Everybody, people, even though death is imminent and inevitable,
Yes.
some people say you will not die. And here you are, having it in your daily budget.
Death is part of life. As much as we enjoy living, be aware that you will also die. And dying is not a bad thing. It's a part of creation. How we go back to God is we die. And we know that we are made by God. And so we also prepare ourselves to die. He told one king that prepare to die. So what he's saying is budget death in your life. Budget death in your daily doing, so that you will be conscious of death. Whatever you're doing, you'll be conscious of it. If I die, I'll give account of my life. If I die, I am responsible for how I live, because how I'm going to live up there would depend on how I live here. And for me, it's a daily reflections. This morning, I read in John, I read also in the Old Testament. Everything is about serving God and obeying God as a very important ingredient of our faith.
So how do you reconcile this with the message that those who tell people you will not die or it is not your time to die?
People who say death is not their portion or it's not their time to die, they don't understand the Bible. They are street interpreters of the Bible. But when you read the Bible deeply, you will know that young people die, old people die, everybody dies. So it's not about age. There's no age limit to death. And so you may be, somebody would be 30 years and they die. Somebody is just in the womb and they die. They have not sinned. It's just part of the life process. You might have some infection and you die.
No time, no hour. Nobody knows when.
No. So if somebody says they're not going to die young, it's I don't know whether you call it rascality or not, but it's not thinking well. It's not thinking maturely. It's a kind of an immature understanding of the scripture. When you understand the scripture very well, yes, God gives some people long life. Yes. And some people, they say, Jesus, how long was Jesus in the world? But he impacted the world. You could have said, well, I will not go to die young, but he died young. If you die at 33, is that not what you call, in my language, tepruat? You just broken in the middle of growing up. But again, it was part of life. And it was that life that saved a lot of us too. So it's not about age.
You've schooled within Nigeria and outside.
Yes.
And, mostly in the United States.
Yes.
What are those experiences you gained while schooling?
The Gindri experience actually prepared me for life anywhere. Even my primary school studies, the teachers who knew what they were doing, they taught what they knew best, so that even if you are in class 2, you could teach people in class 1. So education then was, you can say, universal. Anywhere you can find it. So and in Gindri, the teachers were very good. So they prepared you to work anywhere. Even when you went to TCNN, the teachers were very good. If you went to seminary at TCNN, you could go to seminary anywhere in the world, and you'll still function. If I talk of the languages, TCNN does very well. Probably as good as my seminary lecturers in the US. There are two cultures in Nigeria and the US. The US studies is quite open to what you want to do and what you can do. Here you are tailored to write, to do exams. We do exams there too, but you do a lot of research also. Here you do a lot of reading, and you write exams. And it's like sometimes you have to give back to the teacher what they give you. But there you are open to be creative, and you choose the language that communicates your understanding of that particular subject.
Okay, so I look at your resume also, and I look at from 1986. you wanted, you were qualified as a pastor.
Yes.
But somehow you found yourself also preparing others to be pastors more than any other. 16 years at the theological school in Gindri.
And 6 years in Kabir.
6 years in Kabir, putting it about 22 years
Yeah.
altogether. Teaching, the kind of product, the impact and impartation, how was it working at that level?
In Kabir, the students were older than me, but they were ready to learn. They were willing to learn. All the materials were in English. I had to translate them into Hausa to teach.
Oh, personally?
Yes. And I enjoyed it because it was the model of Jesus Christ in teaching is that you learn from the students learn from you, and you are friends. You are not superior. In fact, some students are even more intelligent than you, but you should be willing to learn. And when I came to Gindri, there was a time I taught a concept that was difficult, and the student told me, "You don't know how to teach like your wife." and my wife is a born teacher. She's a good teacher. So I went back to ask her, and she said, this particular concept that I taught was difficult. I needed to break it down. So I went back to teach that course, and the student told me, "I'm sure you consulted Madam." So it was an opportunity for me to learn from that.
But how did you feel when the student told you that?
I think he was helping me to be a better teacher.
You accepted it?
Yes. I think we should learn to know that some students are brighter than us. The fact that you are a teacher doesn't mean that you know more than the students. The fact that you are a pastor doesn't mean that you are better than some members. There are members that know the Bible better than some pastors. Sometimes it's a revelation of the Holy Spirit. But I enjoy teaching those students, whether it was in Kabir. We are still friends with most of them who are still alive. And when we meet, I don't see myself as a senior or as former teacher, but as colleagues. Jesus said, "You would be my friends." He was talking to people he was teaching. So if we have that concept in our lives, we're not going to feel I'm a boss or I'm this, I'm that. One of the things that I think I learned from the US was that students and staff go by their first name. I wasn't called Reverend Dashan, no. They called me Obed. Even the VC of the university, then you would call them here, who was president of the school, we call him Henry. And Henry is someone who was in his 70s. And here we were in our 40s, and we were calling him by his first name.
Personal relationship.
Yes, it's relationship.
But here in Nigeria, if you don't attach it,
it's culture. Everything here is a lot of culture. And it has been complicated by political ego system.
So how did you get to be vice president?
I don't know. How I got to be vice president? I don't know how I got to be vice president. I was elected.
I also understand church politics is very strong in all denominations.
Every denomination. First and foremost, if you are called by God, you will not do politics. If you do politics, you are not working on God's side. Every position I've had in Cochrane, I never knew anybody who either wanted or I wanted them to vote me. No. I had never asked one human being, I want to be this, I want to be that. No. When I left Gindri as provost, in fact, they asked me to be provost 3 times, and I said no. So they posted me to a local church. I was in the local church for 2 years. Then they elected me general secretary. I didn't know how it happened, but I was elected in the general church council, and I don't attend general church council. So then after that, I was there for 4 years, and then they later on did another. The office of the vice president became vacant. They nominated people, and I was also nominated, and I was elected. So I don't know who elected me, but it happened like that. I am not the kind of person that I would like a high position. I was trained to be a pastoral counselor, and I enjoy counseling. I think that is part of what I will be going back to do. I was instrumental in setting up part of Cochrane Counseling Center right now. But I am positioned vice president. Sometimes I feel like it's an encumbrance in terms of what you can do, except that people ask you or they trust you and they want you to do it. So you accept such position with humility.
Sir, I also want to ask questions relating to how is the office and functions of the Vice President. But from the positions you've had, I'm sure you've been prepared for leadership, for any position and responsibility.
Preparation, I don't know if anybody, even now that I am retiring, I still feel that I need to learn a lot more. But the office of the Vice President in Cochin is that you are overseeing all the regional church councils. And we have 93 regional church councils in resident in Nigeria, apart from the other areas.
A lot of work for you and travels.
It's a lot of travels, a lot of contacts. Now that with the new technology, we do some work on phone.
Virtually.
Yeah, virtually. There are a few things that you need to just call them and you listen to them, and then you ask what they have done, what they can do, then what have they done and have failed, and then you can make some other suggestions and so on. Or if you need to, then you go. I've gone to some other RCCs.
Are you retiring as Vice President? Or are you retiring because of age, now a retired pastor?
I am retiring because of age. In Cochin, when you get to 65, you retire. Whether you are president or whether you are vice president or whether you are chairman or whether you are what, whether you are pastor, whatever you are, when you get to 65.
So, but I'm not seeing much of the gray on your head.
Well, the gray, maybe my dad was not gray most of it. So I think it's kind of inheritance. But I am old enough to retire.
I know you look strong enough to do.
And I am strong.
So what would you be doing if you retire with?
I am open to a lot of other opportunities. One, I had planned I would be keeping goats because I like keeping goats.
You mentioned earlier you started.
Yes.
When you were younger.
Yes.
But in a modern way.
Maybe a sheep, but I'm not sure. I like keeping sheep. But chickens, rabbits. Then I'll be doing some farming, corn, or and then do some gardening with some fruits, plant those things.
But the call is to be a fisher of men. At what point? Is it continuing?
I will not stop being a pastor. I will continue to be a pastor until I die. You are a pastor until you die, but there is a constitution that provides for retirement. You get to a certain age, the things you have built over the years, if you don't take time, you'll begin to break them down again. Because the age will kind of mess you up and you forget some things, and some things that you used to think clearly, you will not think clearly again. And so you'll act contrary to what you have been doing. I don't want to get to a point where I am senile. Is it senile or senility?
Yeah.
Yeah, but to a point where you are not functional again. You should be able to draw back and advise younger people. And you should also encourage other people to become leaders, because it's not a good thing to say you are a leader and you're going to be there for life. No.
At the onset, you mentioned your family, children, 5 children, your wife. And how did you meet your wife?
I met my wife, one, through in a prayer meeting. I used to be at TCNN, and Ben Kwashi, the Archbishop, and I used to come here for Bible studies. We were classmates at TCNN, so we would come for prayer meeting. I saw one beautiful girl there. Then we went to All Nation in Bokos. The same girl, I met her there. So eventually I talked to her and she agreed and we got married. So Feda was in the fellowship. She went to SPS Kefi. On there she went to Ilorin and read English education. And then she came back, we got married. She was teaching in Gonerid.
How old is the marriage?
38 now. We're about 38 married, 38 years now.
That's a very good one and a very good story, I'm sure.
Yes.
Okay. So it would have been very good to continue this conversation, but a person of your personality and CV, the time is not enough for us to continue. We can only wish you a successful retirement. And in retirement, we'll bring you again to tap from your experience, to talk on some topical issues, religion, society, and the rest of them. Thank you very much, sir, for honoring our invitation.
Thank you very much. It's a joy and a pleasure that we would have time to chat like this.
Yeah.
I enjoy chatting. Thank you.
Viewer, that's the much we can take on today's edition of the program. We've been speaking with Reverend Dr. Obed Dashan, Vice President of Cooking. He is a member of the the prestigious National Institute of Policy and Strategic Studies. I remain yours sincerely, Yakubu Tadi, your uncle. Next week we'll be here with another interesting guest.